I investigated a prime minister. Yes, as a journalist, I went into some deep investigations that took me out of the island, onto the continent of Africa, and many other places. And then I had to shut my mouth because the threats came in left, right, and center. The man them say, anytime I come off of this plane, I set foot in Jamaica, if it's a book me coming to talk about, then there is no way that I'm going to leave alive. Yes, that happened.
The Prime Minister lied. And these are not my words. I'm just paraphrasing what the investigator, the director of investigation said in his report. So the Prime Minister lied. There are issues regarding a bond, a $94,000 bond. There are issues regarding conflict of interest. There are issues regarding his affiliation and interaction with 5 companies. There are issues concerning the bank accounts. There are issues concerning the illicit enrichment in and of itself. There are issues concerning a loan made by Barita.
All right, we're back with you inside of the Africa Forum. This is Running Africa. I'm going to be speaking in a little while to Wilfred Rattigan, attorney at law and a former FBI agent. We're still this morning, focusing on the Integrity Commission report. As I said last week, I've read the report, and I read it 3 times up to last week, and knowing that I was going to do the program, continue the discussion this morning with Wilfred Rattigan, I thought to myself, let me read it again, and I ended up reading it twice. So it's 3 and 2, 5 times now. So I've read this report. I understand my personality. Let me just get this out there straight, because after last week's program, I must say that for a very long time, I've never had such a backlash in my interpretation of a document. All right. So that aside, that said, I had online with me attorney at law, Casey Valerie Robertson, and she also agreed with me in part. As a matter of fact, one of the things that happened on this program last week is that we both agreed. I'd asked her if, having gone through and looked at the document, if it wasn't necessary now, considering the confusion, to have the Integrity Commission, the members of the Integrity Commission, at a press conference taking questions from journalists. And she said, no, I would like to see them before the committee in Parliament answering questions. And it wasn't much later, I think it was a day after or 2 days after in the week, that very same thing came up in Parliament. And we understand now that the commission members, the commissioners, will be going before Parliament. I think it is important. I still maintain that the report leaves too much room for speculation. So I'm going to go back to my own personality, which is the isness of things. Obviously, that is a character trait. That is my personality. That's how I see life. I deal with what is, and this is why I always say it is what it is. And I really don't have no time for the flaws and no time for the fluffy, frilly things. I don't see them. No, that is a personality thing. I understand that. I have been trying to manage that side of my personality, so I can say that. So I have a document in my hand, and this is what I have. Prior knowledge don't come into it at all. When I'm reading a document like that, I do not know anything. Because my thing is what's the document trying to achieve? So I am reading the black and white, the ink on the paper. That is what I'm reading. What I see, that is what I'm understanding. I am not going to go in the minds of anybody at all, because this is not a literature test to say what was a poet thinking. Because this is how the IC report is reading to me. Like when I get a poem, do not go something another into the night. You remember that poem? Rage, rage, rage. And you get a question, what was the poet thinking? No, it's not a literature test. It's a document that comes out of a constitutional body that is very important, because you're talking about an investigation into the Prime Minister. So that is all I know. That is all I have. I do not know anything else apart from this document that I have in my hand. And after reading that document 5 times now, I still feel the very same way. Now, which is to say that regardless of what we know, outside of what's in the document, if the commissioners not put it in there, whoever is writing that document, if it's not in there, it's not in there. And do not expect me to come and say it for you. Don't put words in my mouth. No, I'm not going to speculate about what you meant here. I'm not going to speculate about anything, as a matter of fact. All I have is what you've written, what you've given me. I don't have no time for speculation. That is my thing, regardless of anything else. So anyway, that is that. 22 after 7 o'clock. We're going to be speaking with, not right now, but about 7:30, attorney at law and former FBI agent, Wilfred Rattigan. I know that Rattigan has been reading the document and has been reporting on it in his media, social media, and other media spaces. I also know that we do not necessarily agree, but we can agree to disagree, as my brother Wilfred Rattigan comes online at 7:30. Also, here's another sister that I agree with all the time. If you know, you usually hear me say, Donna, I agree. I'll be in the middle of the program and she's writing on the social media spaces and I read it all out and I say, exactly, I agree with every single word there. I don't think there's ever a time that I've ever said, I do not agree, until last week. Anyway, so Donna Mattis is going to be on the program this morning also as we look at the document, but also to look at the point Donna raised last week, which was, this is so egregious in terms of what was being investigated, etc., what is sent off to the FID and the TAJ, that the least that could be done is for the Prime Minister to step aside while the investigation is underway. And my point to Donna last week was, I called for a system analysis, right? Because the problem we have is systemic. And as it is right now, my belief is that there is none, no, not one, in the whole of the House who is 24 minutes after 7 o'clock. Corruption is corruption around Jamaica. Corruption is in every single nook and cranny. Corruption is a fabric that makes up Jamaica. So if you pull a thread, know which thread you pull, because if you pull it, the whole thing is going to unravel. Before we unravel the thing, I think we must analyze the thing. We don't want a paralysis of analysis, but we have to analyze the thing, and then we have to ensure that we put measures in place, whether we're going to dash out the whole of the fabric, or it can be saved, but no patching can work. So can constitutional reform work? how can we ensure through the Constitution that we make space for anti-corruption laws, and that them not just depend the paper, that in the words of Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey, a corrupt politician must be treated in a special way. But let's put those laws in place. I know there are many on the book already, you know. But where we are, and the point I made last week, was that 1962 to now, 1962 until 2024, September 29, has been a journey into corruption. For example, I investigated a prime minister. Yes, as a journalist, I went into some deep investigations that took me out of the island, onto the continent of Africa, and many other places. And then I had to shut my mouth because the threats came in left, right, and center. There were events that I organized through IRFM that I could not attend. One of those events was when we had the Milton Hanson movement, and there was to be a demonstration in front of the British High Commission's offices. And the police called in here to Carl Young to say, at the time I was Andrea Williams, we have credible information. There's a credible threat on her life. Not only that, the elders had to gather. And when I talk about the elders, I'm talking about the elders. The elders had to gather from here to Timbuktu. And what they came back with for me was to say, walk away because we cannot afford to lose you. I'm speaking truth in this space right now. And that's just one. And there was another prime minister. Yes. That I also investigated and was carrying a lot of what might have happened in this space. That I also had to drop like hot bread. I'm telling you how things go. I'm speaking from a space and a place of experiencing corruption with every single... There was a brother who was to come in to speak. This is a whole other thing now. They talk two already. This is three now. And we're talking about three different people so far. There was a brother who had written a book had called innocently to say, will you come in and do the interview? Because I've read the book, will you come in? Now, this is not the first time I'm asking somebody, will you come in to do the book review? They usually come in. Whether they're in America, England, or wherever, as long as they can afford it, they usually come in. This brother was overseas, and he said, yes, I can, and I'll come. And he called me back, and he said, listen, I just got a call. Brother's about to board the plane. And he said, the man them say, anytime I come off of this plane, I set foot in Jamaica, if it's a book me coming to talk about, then there is no way that I'm going to leave alive. Yes, that happened. And I could go on and on and on and on. I'm just telling you how the thing set. I can give you stories. I've been a journalist all my life. I've been a journalist all my life. And I've been an investigative journalist for 34 years, working in this very same spot. And so I've had it. I've interviewed, investigated, threatened, and right now if I am to even lock in, I've been called PNP, JLP, and every other P in between, depending on which party is in power. And I'm saying that to say this, that corruption is the foundation upon which Jamaica is built. And if we think that it just starts and we're going to be all jumping up and down, and I said last week that if you strip the Prime Minister naked and tar him and feather him and hang him up in halfway tree, that tomorrow whoever steps in place will do anything the same thing you are accusing him of. And everybody below him will do worse. I'm saying this understanding that we must have a systems analysis and we must correct the problem from the source. It's going to be a hard and a long road. You can do it through elections. Where? In Jamaica? No. You will not change any level of corruption in Jamaica through elections. I'm saying that without fear or favor. I'm saying that without apology. Because what we have is one coin with two sides. What we have is a two-headed monster. And I'll talk some more about that later on in the program. Because it don't matter who in power, we are losing access to every single beach in Jamaica. It don't matter who is in power. And when we look around, the beaches are given to their friends. It don't matter who in power. Right now, them need to come and talk to us about why we have no access to land or beach and why they own all the land and all the beaches. That is at that level. It don't matter who is in power. Somebody must also come tell us how China get Roaring River. Somebody must come tell with that. How China get Roaring River. There's a whole lot of questions that need answer, and the Integrity Commission report into one person will not answer a thing. Simple. At the end of the day, it doesn't answer anything. But still, it won't change anything. As I said before, my very special guest is Wilfred Rattigan, former FBI agent, attorney at law. And I'm telling you, we agree on a lot, but we do not necessarily agree on the Integrity Commission report. I know that because I've been listening to Wilfred Rattigan. But let us see where we converge and where we're not. Good morning, Mr. Wilfred Rattigan. Thank you so much for joining us on the phone lines. Appreciate you every time.
Good morning, Cabo. Good morning to your listeners and your staff, and it's always a pleasure to be with you.
I mentioned your name last week, right? When I was doing my commentary, I think was when I was talking to Valerie Nita Robertson, because I said that I remember one of the first interviews I did with you. It was about crime and violence in Jamaica, and it was on a Thursday afternoon. Muta was traveling, and I was sitting in for him. So we were deep into the conversation about crime and violence and drugs and whether or not Jamaica is a narco state. That's a discussion we were having. And I was listening to you, and then I because of what you were saying, I asked you, what would you say is Jamaica's main problem right now? What is Jamaica's major problem? Do you remember your answer?
I don't remember, but it probably would have been corruption.
That's exactly what you said. That's exactly what you said. All right, so I want to start there. How serious is corruption from where you stand in Jamaica?
Extremely serious. Remember, Jamaica is on the corruption index. Anything below 50 is considered very corrupt, and Jamaica is hovering around
44.
I was going to say 41 and 44. Right?
Yes.
So Jamaica, by international standards, Jamaica is very corrupt. Now, if you go by local standards, I did a poll recently, and the majority of Jamaicans believe that Jamaica is a corrupt state. The problem, though, is that we have come to accept it.
All right.
And therein lies the problem. Yes, we've come to it. It's normalized.
it is normalized, and that is a very serious problem because here's the thing: we have generations who know nothing else. Generation millennials and Gen Zs and Gen Alphas and some Gen Xs know nothing. I'll talk about people born in the late 60s and the 70s. Know nothing all the way down to now other than the kind of corruption that we're experiencing right now. So this is normal for them. How dangerous is that to nation building?
It's very detrimental to nation building when you have a segment of your population, a large segment of your population that they know nothing else. This is what they've come up into. And, you know, I was listening to you a while ago, and you were saying it doesn't matter who's in power, you know, because corruption is baked into the cake, and we're all eating. So it's going to be difficult. My personal belief is that to make a dent in corruption, it has to be done from overseas. It cannot be done from within. I mean, yes, you will have to put your shoulders to the wheel in Jamaica to try and eradicate it. Well, first of all, you can never eradicate corruption. You can control it. Mm-hmm. But I think that pressure will have to be brought from outside Jamaica. What do I mean by that? Mm-hmm. Meaning that you would have to have the pressure from the international corruption organizations, pressure from donor countries, donor agencies, pressure from the diaspora. You must have pressure from those fronts in order to change the behavior of the Jamaican politicians. Because most of the time, Cabo, when you look at corruption, you see it in the light of ordinary Jamaica. When I say ordinary, I mean a policeman stopping somebody for a traffic violation and taking a bribe instead of doing what he or she is supposed to do. Mm. But you don't see politicians, especially at the highest levels, going to prison or being charged for it. You just don't see it. And I
but you have politicians tumbling down all the time. I mean, the former Minister of Education, that was a whole corruption case. We have some over the years, I don't have, and I'm sorry that I didn't carry my text from last week, but over the years, we've had so many politicians who, maybe not prison, but have been, you know, kicked out of the system on corruption, cases. But we've had statements like, I will be back. And then you come back. So how come you come back?
And that's why I'm saying you need to send them to prison to send a clear message. You can't give them time out. You can't say, okay, you know, take a back seat for, 6 months, a year, and then you'll be back. Because once you do that, that is no curb on corruption. A timeout is not a curb on corruption. You need to send people to prison. Because only then the people downstream will understand that, look, if they can do it to a prime minister, a deputy, or any minister, if they can do that to them, what do you think will happen to me? And I agree with you. It's a tough road ahead, but it's a road we have to travel.
I want to put it to you, and I'm not an attorney, you are, but I want to put it to you that prison is not a deterrent.
Wait a minute. First of all, it's a deterrent for the person who's in prison. Because if you're in prison, you can't. It's difficult
for the person, but not for for the wider system, not for the next politician.
But here's the thing: because it hasn't happened in Jamaica for such a long time, a politician going to prison, I think you're going to send a clear signal. And then when you have the international organizations and foreign countries applying the pressure, applying the pressure in conjunction with the judiciary in Jamaica doing its job, I think you're going to see changes.
What kind? How changes to the system? Because we just agreed, that the system facilitates corruption. So,
yeah. To some degree, yes. You're going to have to make some changes in the system. You're going to have to make some changes with the Integrity Commission. You're going to have to make changes over there. We need people with a stiff spine over there. because you can't tell me. I'll give you a quick example. You cannot tell me that the Prime Minister is under investigation for illicit enrichment and for knowingly providing false information. And then when you ask him for information to clear up the situation, him tell you not give information, and all you do, you put that in your report. Well, when you have at least 7 sections, you have 7 sections, at least 7 sections in the Integrity Commission Act of 2017 that you could apply and bring this man before the bar of justice and have a judge compelled to provide information. And you don't do it?
All right. Hold that point. Let me take a quick break because we're going to come back and go right to the report. We're back with you inside of the Africa Forum. This is Running Africa, and my very special guest online is Wilfred Rattigan, attorney at law and former FBI agent. A little bit more about Mr. Rattigan. He is a premier high-achieving and experienced former federal law enforcement officer, security expert with specialized knowledge and experience in the full spectrum of diplomatic relations, private industry / government, agency collaboration and law enforcement tactics, training and strategies. He's adept at dealing with highly challenging law enforcement security situations involving international conflict and crisis management. He's a strategic advisor with significant experience in leading large-scale complex investigations and security forces operations. He delivers improvements for personal performance through effective leadership, training and management, and he applies a creative approach to current and emerging trends. He's an experienced attorney and legal instructor with emphasis on government consultancy, administrative matters, real estate, immigration, criminal law, and criminal and law enforcement issues. So he's very qualified. He's overqualified to be on the program. Mr. Rattigan, I know you have, how many times did you read the report? The Integrity Commission report.
I've gone over it 3 times already.
Yeah.
And not just the 117-page report, but also the prosecutor's report, which is about 16 pages.
Yes.
And then the special report, 2 pages.
Yes. And I'm going to send our listeners also to your YouTube channel, because you have broken down, you spent time, hours, I think, breaking down the report and analyzing the report for a wider audience. So you are on YouTube at
Reason with Rattigan.
Reason with Rattigan. All right, what are the major, because you mentioned one earlier, but what would you say are the major points coming out of the report?
Major points. One, the Prime Minister lied. And these are not my words. I mean, I'm just paraphrasing what the investigator, the director of investigation, said in his report. So the Prime Minister lied. There are issues regarding a bond, a $94,000 bond. There are issues regarding conflict of interest. There are issues regarding his affiliation and interaction with 5 companies. There are issues concerning the bank accounts. There are issues concerning the illicit enrichment in and of itself. There are issues concerning a loan made by Barita to the Prime Minister. There are issues abounding in this report.
And when you say issues, has the report identified what those issues are?
Yes, the report does, but it's a very tedious reading because it's not in a format that's, I should say, reader friendly. So if you don't have the patience to go through some of the way it's structured, then you're not going to complete the report.
I want to start one place where I know that the report laid out clearly what the issue was. The issue, and you mentioned it, conflict of interest, for example, with the with a business partner of the Prime Minister. The business partner is named. I think the surname is Brown. I hope I'm not wrong. That's my recollection. A business. Right, a business partner of the Prime Minister who was made the head of the Housing Association of Jamaica and also the head of the UDC in recent times, but is also a business partner in the Prime Minister's real estate portfolio. That is a clear conflict of interest. It is one of the things that I identified as the report says, it is deleterious. I mean, I think that's the word they used. And the recommendation, did they make a recommendation as to what should happen there, or did they just leave it hanging? Do you recall?
Yeah, no, they made a recommendation to the ethics committee, saying that they should look into it to ensure that essentially that you have arm's length distance between politicians and their friends or people that they're in business with.
Right. So that to me is very, very clear. That is a conflict of interest. Ethically and morally, that is wrong. Whether legally is another issue, and we can have a conversation about that later on. Now, on the other things though, regarding the bank accounts, for example, numerous bank accounts, how many? 28 or more?
28.
28. So what is the issue with the bank account from your reading of the report?
With the bank accounts, first of all, he didn't identify them. He had 3 opportunities to present these bank accounts, and he didn't. The commission on its own discovered these or received these from Nova Scotia, Bank of Nova Scotia. And with these 4 accounts, there were 2 of them were owned by his mom, and he was a joint holder. There's one with his father, he was a joint holder. And there's one with a lady from his constituency, where he was identified as a
was this person identified within the report? I don't recall this person being identified as a lady from his constituency in the report, though. Did you do further investigation and find that out?
Yeah, we know who she is.
Yeah, so Mr. Rattigan, remember, so you're an attorney, and we work at a commercial station.
I know.
So let us keep it. This is why I say the isness of things, right? Because as far as I'm concerned in reading the report, no prior knowledge. For me, it's no prior knowledge. And this is what we do as investigative journalists. This is how I was trained. No prior knowledge. I just come to the thing and read the thing. What is there is what is there. So the point I want to make with the bank accounts, though, were you satisfied in reading through, or to what extent were you satisfied or not, and in reading through the excuses or the reasons that the Prime Minister gave for not identifying some of those accounts? For example, the one with the woman who we're not quite sure where she's from, the other one with his parents, and I think there was a second one without his parents.
You know what? Cabo, yes. I'm looking at the report right now, and she was identified on page 41 of the report. Her name is Elizabeth Reed.
But it doesn't say where she's from or who she is. I want auntie named Elizabeth Reed, I mean, no, it says not she.
It says BNS, and I'm quoting from the report. It says BNS account 142 is primarily held by Elizabeth Reed. This is the Prime Minister's answer to the question.
Okay, that's the answer. Yes.
Yeah, and he said it's primarily held by Elizabeth Reed, who worked in my constituency office more than 20 years ago. My recollection is that I had encouraged her to open a bank account through which her wages could be paid online. I do not recall the circumstances in which my name was added to her account.
Right. So he said who worked in more than 20 years ago. So she's no longer in the constituency, according to the Prime Minister's response, and we take it at face value. What is the issue there, Mr. Rattigan? I am not, pardon me for not getting it. I know the speculations that can arise, okay? But if the report doesn't say what it is that people are speculating, how we reach to say that there are issues here?
Here's the issue. The issue is a failure to advise on your statutory declaration that you have these assets. And when they, in their definition of assets, you don't have to own it as long as you're on the bank account, then you're supposed to report that, because you can see where there could be issues with.
Is it unusual? It is, considering the accounts, is it something unusual forensically for these minor accounts, your father, and I'm saying minor because that's how it sounds even in terms of the monies that, later on, because their figures, I mean, the report has, later on, a whole table or tables, referring back to the bank accounts. So would that be unusual, do you think? Do you think it is a proper, an oversight that could have happened?
No, and I'll tell you why. Because he was using the accounts. I'll give you an example of one of them, account number 64. That his mother was the primary and he was the joint holder. Now, between December 20th and between December 2020 and August 2021, $2.6 million Jamaican dollars transferred from that account, from account 64, to an account owned by the Prime Minister. Between February and December of 2021, $1.2 million transferred from that same account 64 to another account owned by the Prime Minister. And later, $1.8 million transferred from one of the Prime Minister's accounts to account number 64. So he was using the account, or somebody using his his bank account was involved in transactions with his mother's account.
Right, because a joint holder account, I'm on my mother's account. And before my father died, I don't necessarily know, how they are. I don't police their account. This is the point I'm making. No. This is why I'm asking, how unusual would this be for the Prime Minister?
No, but the issue is not policing the account. The issue is reporting the account.
Yes, I understand.
The issue is that you're on the account, right? And so
report it.
The reason I gave you the transactions is to say it's not like you can say I didn't know about the account.
Right.
Because when they interviewed him, he said, I know I'm on the account and I've used the account. So the question is then why didn't you report the account? And they gave him 3 chances, at least 3 chances. He could have reported the account and he didn't.
And they have said, in summing up, correct me if I'm wrong, that he didn't. Is it knowingly or intentionally?
It's knowingly.
It's knowingly. What's the difference between those two?
It's much ado about nothing. It's like a distinction without a difference, because at the end of the day, it means the same thing. It means that you intentionally didn't report it when you know that you should have reported it. Now, here's the key, that one of the things that the corruption prosecutor didn't look at. The Prime Minister asked the Integrity Commission for training on good governance and anti-corruption issues. They provided the training. It was a 12-module training. And one of the modules was about statutory declaration, when to file, how to file, all of this stuff. And he received the training. Then they said to him, listen, you have to sign this code of conduct, the 7 Nolan principles of good governance. And he said, no. And not only him, but his entire cabinet. No one has signed it on the government side.
Yes, we remember that whole, debacle literally, because majority of Jamaican people couldn't understand why they wouldn't sign, and at no time did we get a good excuse or reason for not signing. So the point you're making regarding him not signing is what?
Is that he knew he had to provide this information because he received the training. So she could have looked at that and said, you know what, Mr. Prime Minister, the idea that you didn't knowingly do it, I don't buy it, because you know why? You received training on this matter specifically. Yeah. And also, you're using the account. So if you're using the account, then, and you admitted that you're on the account as a joint holder, you should have filed. You should have filed.
And he's come back to say, what? Because he did, as far as I'm concerned, he did respond to those. I knew this, but the commissioner seemed to have been somewhat convinced in that, whether it was an interview or just email. I don't know how that discussion took place, but we're seeing that interaction in terms of what he told them. But if you look at the front page of the report, it says ruling, no charge, no charge / prosecution. No charge, no prosecution. Before we go to no charge, no prosecution, I'm going to take a quick break and come back and look at the companies. But I also want you to, there's a question that's in my mind to say, there is in the sphere, in the public sphere right now, this idea that the Prime Minister had so many bank accounts and that in itself signifies something. I want you to respond to that from your own experience as a forensic analyst, if that really is such a big deal. Let me come back. Let me take a break.
Safe, reliable, great value. Always buy from an authorized IGL dealer. The time by IGL is
2 minutes to 8 o'clock. All right, so we're back with Mr. Wilfred Rattigan, who's an attorney at law and a former FBI agent. So Mr. Rattigan, right, to the question I asked just before the time signal. So the Prime Minister had all of these accounts, and we see that coming out in the account, in the report. I know just from talking to many people, and I got a backlash last week by people saying to me, well, he had so many accounts, something must be wrong, he must be that. But does that mean, in the wider scheme of things, what's the significance of that? And is that such a big deal for a Prime Minister to have 28 accounts?
Well, it's not a crime to have 28, 58, 108 accounts. But when you're the Prime Minister of the country and you have 28 accounts, it raises some red flags. You look at the account and the amount of money going through, coming out. You see that what they call cardless deposits made to his accounts by, and it later came out that it was his business partner who transferred, I think, $4.5 million through ATMs to him. You look at how the accounts have been used, and then you start to wonder, why do you have so many accounts? And that's a perfectly legitimate question. In fact, there are two accounts.
So why was that not answered? Why the Integrity Commission? Why it appears with no charge, no prosecution, that the Integrity Commission was okay with whatever answer they got?
No, they said no charge, no prosecution regarding only 4 accounts. The four Nova Scotia bank accounts, not the entire the 28, just the 4 that he should have reported, and he did not report. And when they made inquiry, they, meaning the Integrity Commission, made inquiries of the bank revealed that information to them, and they said, wait a minute, this man has had so many chances to come clean and tell us that, okay, I list these 4 accounts, and he didn't do it. That was the only issue put before the Integrity Commission, before the corruption prosecutor. So for those people out there saying, oh, the prosecutor said no charge, and she can't charge him for nothing, that's not quite true. She was only requested to look at one issue, and it was the issue of 4 Nova Scotia bank accounts. That's it.
In terms of the companies, we have four main companies?
Yeah, 5.
What's the issue arising from those? Because you identify those also as having issues there.
Yes. You have ADMAT, Imperium, Estate Bridge, Positive Media, and Green Emerald. Huge problems with the way the companies were run. First thing you have to know is that 4 out of the 5 companies, well, take ADMAT out of the equation, because that was established in St. Lucia in 2008 and dissolved in December 2021. So take ADMAT out of the equation. Now you have Imperium, Estate Bridge, Positive Media, and Green Emerald. One of the things I noticed was that all of these companies were formed in 2020 during the pandemic. The first COVID case in Jamaica was registered in March of 2020.
He found himself with time on his hands.
But then he was running up. That's not what you listen to. If you read the speeches,
no, I'm just joking.
Yeah, I know you're being facetious. Yeah, I know. But then, so what happened? The first company, Imperium, was formed in June. The second company, Estate Bridge, was formed in July. The third company, Positive Media, was formed in October, and Green Emerald was formed in November.
Why is the COVID? Why is the COVID reference necessary?
It's necessary because, first of all, our Prime Minister, and by the way, let me just make it clear that Green Emerald is not a director or a part of Green Emerald. Green Emerald is connected to Green Emerald in the sense that Green Emerald is a company formed in the middle of the ghetto in a Cockburn, Penpa, Anderson Avenue. And Green Emerald was lending the Prime Minister's Positive Media Company $24 million. And the question
is... Do we know where that money came from, that loan?
That's a very good question. The Integrity Commission did not track the source of that money. They did not. Mm-hmm. And then here's another one. They have a company called Positive Media.
Positive Media, yes.
There's a company called Positive Media. Now, Positive Media started out with $5 million.
I do know that company. We're in the media together. Right. Yes.
Yeah. Started with $5 million.
Mm-hmm.
And then Imperium, another company owned by the Prime Minister, provided $2.9 million to Positive Media when it was formed, right? So it's formed in 2020.
Is that a problem?
No, here's the problem. Mm-hmm. The following year, Positive Media is lending Imperium, what is it? 46. In 2021, they loaned them 46 million Jamaican dollars and 30,000 US. And then the year after that, they loaned them 20 million Jamaican dollars and 11,000 US. The question is, where did that money come from?
Right. So the Integrity Commission was not able to say where that money came from for Positive Media, considering that they at the same time were registering a nil growth, if you will, no profit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you work with me now, because I'm going from what I read, and I don't have notes in front of me now. I'm talking from my head, to tell you how much I've read this thing and studied, But if you recall, did the IC at any time say where that money came from, where that loan, how Positive Media made its millions to be able to lend to Imperium?
Positive Media is claiming that it had the JLP as a client, it had the Prime Minister's constituents as a client, it had a few clients, but we don't say where the money came from.
This is where the speculation come from, because for us in the media, and I've spoken to other people in the media about this very thing, because and for me, most this is similar to what we see happening with UDC and HAJ and the Prime Minister's company and his partner, who is the head of these two agencies within the Prime Minister's office. That this is similar to me. Positive Media is reading similar. I won't say much about the ownership. I think people can go look that up if they will. But it appears to me as if there might also be ethical considerations here, rather than some of what I hear happening in the public sphere, the conclusions that people are drawing. Because these contracts from government to media are not, most times, 9 times out of 10, are some massive contracts. So if they are going from government back to the Prime Minister's company, then that is a serious conflict of interest.
Well, here's another serious issue. All of these companies, right, including Green Emerald, they all declared that they made money, or the IC determined that they made money, and not one of them paid taxes. Every single one of them claimed nil taxes. There's a serious tax problem here. When you look at the ordinary Jamaican and say, no, you have to pay your taxes, And then no.
Mr. Vatican, you want me to remind you of something? Because I think both of us had this discussion, in one of our, because of many times we talk, There was a Gleaner report. It was an investigative Gleaner report that came out 2 years ago, possibly, or maybe a little less, that identified that there was a system in Jamaica, as a very private and secret system it would appear, that this was allowing and giving tax write-offs to the wealthiest companies in Jamaica. And they named some of the private sector companies that were getting these tax write-offs. I'm not saying that is the same thing happening here. But as I said, what I have in my hand is what I have in my hand. So the speculation...
Well, here's the thing. This wasn't a tax write-off. This was just a flat-out...
no tax payment. And I use the wrong term. It wasn't tax write-off that the Gleaner talked about either. It was just straight now pay no tax.
Right.
Yes. So this is an interesting situation, yes.
There's a difference between tax evasion and tax avoidance, right? Tax avoidance is legal. Tax evasion is illegal. When you're supposed to pay your taxes and you don't pay it, and the common denominator is none of these.
I know we have some good producers out there. Yvonne Brown, my attorney at law friend. Can you find that story in the Gleaner for me, please, my dear? Because this was an investigative report from the Gleaner company. It is that, and I'm not saying this is what happened here. What I'm saying is that we know that there was a situation in Jamaica that was not corrected because there was no big outcry. The Gleaner did this. There were 7 days of interviews left, right, and center, and then it just disappeared. But there was no response, no big response from government, and no change as far as I am concerned. I'm thinking that we'll probably have a situation here. Now, if this is tax avoidance, what would be your reasoning as opposed to if it is tax evasion?
Tax avoidance is a legal mechanism whereby you pay as little tax as permitted under the law, or you pay no taxes. It depends. There's that's a whole separate conversation. Tax evasion now is when you are supposed to pay taxes on your earned income, and you just don't pay it. And what was curious is that every single one of these companies said, yeah, we had expenses and we had income, and then both filed nil taxes. And he said, well, why? And see, that's one of the reasons why the Integrity Commission claimed that they couldn't complete the illicit enrichment investigation because the Prime Minister refused to provide information to them.
And the question is, what's the prerogative then of the Integrity Commission? I asked Valrenita last week, is the Integrity Commission toothless? Because I have this document in my hand, and there are too many loopholes, too many things left hanging, too much left for speculation and confusion in the nation. That what kind of purview does the Integrity Commission has regarding ensuring that information that is requested and required is provided to them?
Okay. I think it's section 7.3. Please, I'm asking your listeners to go watch my program last night, and I only provided 2/3 of the information that I have. I still have another, 2/5. I still have another 3/5 to go. But under section 7.3, it says, if the Integrity Commission asks you for information to complete their, in regards to their investigation, and you say no, they have the absolute right to take you to court without notifying you. They have to take you to court, and have a judge issue an order compelling you to provide that information. Now, think about if they had done that, what would have happened in terms of the PR disaster for the Prime Minister? If they had said, Mr. Prime Minister, we need this information from you, and he said, I'm not giving it to you, and they said, okay, fine, no problem. And the next thing you know, you see the headline, court orders Prime Minister to comply with Integrity Commission's request. That would have been devastating, and they had the absolute right and power and authority to do so, and they did not. Yesterday I mentioned at least 7 sections in the Integrity Commission Act of 2017 that gave them this authority, and they didn't use it. Instead, what they said in the report was that we couldn't complete the investigation regarding illicit enrichment because the Prime Minister did not cooperate with us, and therefore we're sending it over to FID for them to conduct their investigation.
The question that came up in the program last week, Joe, is because this is our space. We look at things through our lens, and a lot is out there. But this is the question that came up: what authority, if any, does the Integrity Commission have to send this over to FID and TAJ? And should it have taken another route? And against the background of a discussion we heard in Parliament, the motion that was moved by the opposition, the rejection of that motion, and then the request for the members, the commissioners, to come before the committee.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me just read you 7.3. Mm-hmm. It says, let me start with 7.1. It says, the Commission may, in the performance of its functions, work in cooperation with any person or body as it may deem appropriate. And then it says, the court may, on an application made by the Commission without notice, order any person or body to provide to the Commission any information or document which the court deems necessary to assist the Commission in carrying out its functions under this Act. Mm-hmm. They could have done it under 7.3.
They could have done what?
They could have said, we're going to go, they could have gone to the court and said, Judge, we've asked the Prime Minister to provide information so we can complete this investigation, and he has refused. We're asking you to compel him to provide the information to us. And the court could have issued an order.
Do you agree then, or to what extent do you agree that the Integrity Commission, to some extent, has created this problem that we are now faced with, in fact, in that it didn't use the powers that it had to get the information that it required, and yet it put this document out into the public sphere, knowing this is an investigation into the Prime Minister. This is not no ordinary investigation. People have been talking about this for years, because the statutory declaration, and that was the first thing, and so on, and then the investigation and the report is out. Did they fail in their duty?
To some extent, regrettably, it did. It did. Because if they had gone to court to force the Prime Minister's hand, we wouldn't be here. We would be somewhere else. But it didn't. And I've gone through the report. And like I said yesterday on my program, I'm looking at this through the lens of being a concerned Jamaican living in the diaspora. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at this through the lens of being an attorney. And I'm looking at this through the lens of being an investigator. And from my perspective, there are things that they could have done that they didn't do. On the other hand, there are things that they discovered that they're hamstrung by their own regulations and the law. For example, you don't have to provide statements, like monthly statements. So what happens, you only have to provide for your bank account. You only have to provide what you have at the end of the period. You have at December 31st, what you have in it. So you could transact in your account millions of dollars throughout the year from January to December and not report that. Because the only thing that you have to report is what you have at the end of the year.
But and this is the point I'm making out. But what this does is to leaves it so wide open, and this is why we have a tribalist response to the Integrity Commission report. We're trying to be objective in this space. We cannot allow Jamaica to descend down the tribalist path that we see. We're going just everybody reading the same report and coming out with all kinds of stuff. Obviously, you're saying they're hamstrung by their own the ineffectiveness.
Yeah. And just to divert a little bit, give you an example, Section 53.3, the gag order. That should never have been there. And that thing is so confusing, because what it says is that as long as the matter is being investigated by the Director of Investigation, and until it's stable, you can't talk about it. Well, what about when the Director of Information and Complaints, what about him? When he has it and he's doing his preliminary investigation, can they talk about it? According to the law, yes.
So there are a lot of issues regarding the Integrity Commission itself and the mandate that it has and the tools that it has and whatever you call the protocols and policies and so on. So there has to be a second look. My friend Yvonne Brown, who is also an attorney, sent me a Gleaner article last week when we was doing this, because Valerie Anita was raising the question about which model are we using for the Integrity Commission in Jamaica, because she says usually we look at other countries and take the best from them. And so she sent me an article that was written by Mr. Golding that pointed to Sierra Leone, that that Jamaica used the model from Sierra Leone. And the point I made then was that hence the confusion, because Sierra Leone is having no better time, as a matter of fact, worse time, than we're having, and is still one of the most corrupt countries in the world. So they never meant to address corruption. It was just smoke and mirrors. And if you were studying Sierra Leone, you'd have known that. So to take that into the Jamaican space was already the first mistake. So do you think then that there needs to be a revisit of the Integrity Commission and to say, maybe look at another country, best practices, and you know?
Absolutely. No, what people must remember is that the Integrity Commission is actually a combination of 3 Jamaican agencies, you know.
Yes.
The Contractor General, and there's another one, another agency that dealt with corruption, and then there was one called the Integrity Commission. It's 3 agencies that they collapsed into one, and so we're going to make this a super agency, because there were some overlapping functions, and so they said, look, you know what, to eliminate all that, let's just put all of these 3 agencies into one. Now, the thing about it is that when I go through this, the act itself is woefully inadequate. I'm not a draftsman for legislation, but I can read, and I have a pretty good sense of understanding. And this thing is just riddled with loopholes. Here's one of them. One of them is that if it says that a gift given to a politician over $100,000 Jamaican dollars must be reported. But if you get a gift from a relative, you don't have to report it. Now, we don't hear something like that.
Yes, something is seriously wrong there. Obviously.
Very wrong.
Yes.
And so I have my look, the idea of having a super anti-corruption agency is a very noble idea. Yes. It's a very good idea. But I think we need to wheel and come again.
Let me take a break and we'll come back and pick up right there. All right. So you're saying we have a wheel and come again with the Integrity Commission. We have just about 4 minutes in this segment. So let me give you the time to say what's on your mind regarding.
Yeah. Let me give another problem with the Integrity Commission. Yeah. It's made up of several divisions, and included in the IC is the corruption prosecutor. Now, one of the things that they don't do that they should do is that they should work under the intelligence fusion center, intelligence center concept, where you get everybody on the ground floor. From the moment you start the investigation, you get everybody. Instead, they continue to work in silos. So that's why you get the prosecutor saying at the end of the investigation, I disagree. Mm-hmm. If the prosecutor and the investigators were working together on the ground, they would come to the prosecutor and they would say, listen, we have these allegations. What do you think? And then the prosecutor would be able to guide them, would be able to say, look, there are certain elements to this crime, and there are certain pieces of evidence that I need to prove this. So go out and get this, because otherwise I cannot prosecute. Mm-hmm. Nobody would even know about this, but instead they work in silos, and then they turn the report over. Then she said, oh, legally this is not sound, and then there's a problem. That's one. Number 2, let me tell you about the burrito loan and tell you why I think that there is something woefully wrong with this Prime Minister, and he must come clean. He got a loan from Burrito for $50 million. When he applied for the loan and he got the loan, he said, for collateral, I'm putting up a fire insurance policy, I'm putting up property, and I'm putting up shares. These 3 things I'm putting up to get this $50 million loan. The Integrity Commission found out in its investigation that when he got the loan, he had none of these things. None of them. The property, he did not own the property until 6 months after he got the loan. Mm-hmm. The shares, he did not he used the loan to buy the shares. He did not have the shares when he got the loan.
Mm-hmm.
And the fire insurance, there's no fire insurance policy.
Right. And so, and as you said at the beginning, the IC, one of the definitive statements is that the Prime Minister lied in the report.
Yes.
In terms of as far as definitive statements go, though, it's woefully inadequate. I mean, there's hardly anything there for us to hang, and a peg for us to hang our hats on, apart from, as you said, the Prime Minister now has to come to us. But why, after so many months of investigation, we still have this wide gap that, you put out a report, but you never put out a report. This is my point. You put out a report and you're creating more confusion. There are more questions than answer. What's your thinking on the members going before the committee, called to report before the committee?
Well, here's the thing. Keep in mind that the oversight committee, they're not there to, my understanding is that they're not there to question the findings or the judgment of the IC. That is between the Integrity Commission, the corruption prosecutor, the courts, the commission, and there's a person we should not leave out, the DPP. Because do you know what could happen right now? Mm-hmm. What could happen right now is the commission could say, we don't like the corruption prosecutor's decision. We think that it's an error. So we want the DPP to render a decision. Now, under the Constitution, the DPP is the supreme prosecutor in Jamaica. The DPP can start prosecutions, mm-hmm. take over prosecutions, mm-hmm. or terminate prosecutions, no matter who started. Mm-hmm. And under the Integrity Commission Act, they have the right to go to her and say, the acting, and go to her and say, we need you to take a look at this and render an opinion. Then to do that, they didn't do it last year with the Westcon investigation, which I thought they should. Mm-hmm. Now here's a second chance for them to do it, mm-hmm. and they still haven't done it yet. Mm-hmm. That's what they should do. Bring all the parties involved so we can figure out now who corrupt and who not corrupt. That's what we need to do.
And I think this is an excellent point you make. That should have been done. That should have, you see, to me, I am thinking about the 6,000 students who left school last week who don't have one subject, neither maths, nor English, nor nothing. I'm thinking about the 6,000 the year before and the 6,000 the year before. We are a highly illiterate country. We need to call a spade a spade. What people are doing, people are looking to we in the media for guidance as to how to understand this report. And even people who are very literate don't have no time to sit down and read all of these legalese. So they're looking to us, respecting us in the spaces to say, what did they say? How it look? And I think we owe it to the public to say, this is my reading of it, and look at it holistically. And to say, but at the end of the day, it is too big of an issue by itself, illicit enrichment and so on, regardless of what we think, for this wishy-washy report to be held over the Prime Minister's head. This is the point I'm making, that the Integrity Commission owe us a proper report. And I don't know if it's double jeopardy or whatever, but something needs to be done. We need a proper report. I see the whole heap of loopholes, Rattigan, where the main one, for example, you ask for documents, you require documents of the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister says, I'm not giving you the documents. Or you just left it hanging like that.
I agree. There are things that the Integrity Commission has the things that occurred that they have no one to blame but themselves, because they should have followed their own laws and their own procedures, and they didn't. And so they gave the Prime Minister deferential treatment they wouldn't give you.
It is
and that
wrong.
Is not right.
But also it is so wrong, Rattigan, for them to leave it to the nation to speculate. It is wrong. I would have sued them for it, I'm telling you the truth, because I don't know how you leave something so open for us to speculate on. Prior knowledge. Yes. All right, so it's that not gonna help. Why didn't you make some definitive statements in the thing? You're putting out a report, or you don't put out the report at all. What was the haste in putting out the report? 3 years after you're working on this thing. What was the big deal putting out the report right now? Why did the report come out now?
Well, let me tell you this. When I look at the report, Mama used to tell me, self-praise is no recommendation. But sometimes you have to recommend yourself. And what I'm saying is, when I look at this report, if one of my investigators brought this report to me, I'd kick him out, or kick her out of my office.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, because I'm saying that as an investigative journalist, I am left with, I literally said when I done read the thing, I put it on and said, them take with an idiot. What are we supposed to do with this? They're going to leave this on the nation to speculate. It is going to descend into tribalism, which is what has happened.
Yeah, they should have. I'll give you another one before you go. I'll give you another one. Just to give you an example of how dysfunctional this integrity commission is, right? Yeah. And again, having said that, though, I must say that there are parts of the report that I found to be credible and excellent, but there are many parts that I have an issue with. But here's one of the things that the Honorable Seymour Panton said in the annual report, and most people, like you said, they don't have the time to.
We have only 1 minute because of cash pod, so you know how to cut into you when cash pod comes. Yes, go ahead. Yes.
What happened is that what he said was that, hey, we know that people are filing in their statutory declaration saying that they have received gifts, but they got it from somebody who's now dead, and there's no paperwork.
I saw
and
that.
He said, he said, and we have no appetite to follow up on that. So
of course
what he's saying is a clear signal that, hey, if you want to hide some money, if you just say, okay, I got this money and I got this from John Brown, and John Brown is dead, and everything is fine.
Death certificate to the world. I want to continue this conversation with you, Ratigan. Maybe after the commission meet the committee. The commissioners meet the committee.
My sister, I'm at your beck and call.
Thank you so much, my brother. Thank you so much. All right. So here we hear it from Mr. Wilfred. Thank you so much, Wilfred Ratigan, attorney at law and former FBI agent. Two stalwarts, two attorney at law, two very credible attorneys at law. One last week, Valerie Anita Roberts, and this morning, Wilfred Ratigan. And they're not far apart in what they have said at all. If anything, they concur. And so much. This is the point I'm making.